Hello everyone, my name is Juan Carlos. I will be doing a presentation currently in comms communication 399 with the term in 2026 with instructor Susan Eck. So communication perspective, let's start at stage how communication has dramatically changed our ways of communication. Most meaningful conversations happen over text messaging than in person. We are constantly connected, right? We can send text messages, and any second of the day, right? And that could be a good thing, bad thing, depending on your state of mind. But it's just changed the way we fundamentally you know, have talked to each other. Over thousands of years, it's always been, in person. And so now, and in human history, now it's like, more so, digital. And so, it has its pros and cons. Primarily is, what state of mind you're in, right? A lot of people can fire off something and, regret it later. And also too, it's, at work, right? You don't want to constantly be communicating in text messaging, kind of blowing up the chat supposedly. And so, it's just something that to be mindful of. And so, even though we're constantly connected, as long as it's used in the right way, right? So I usually use this in gratifications theory. People use texting for different personal reasons. Like I was mentioning, for work, for relationships. When you meet someone, you don't have a lot of time necessarily to talk to that person. So a lot of people kind of start off with text messaging and kind of see how that plays out, and then they'll go, for a date or whatever it is. And a lot of people, they feel different vibes from people during text messaging. Like for me, I'm very short. At least my wife told me. But now, she's the one that's short in text messaging. So it's funny how that works out. Now I'm the one that's oversharing. But yeah, then so we kind of use it differently for different people, right? Like I don't text the same way I text to my mom or to my friends or to my wife the same way, or to your colleague or to your boss. So does it fully capture yourself, like I was mentioning? A lot of miscommunication does happen through texting. We've all kind of been there. We've like, hey, what did you mean by that? Or, maybe yourself, you're unsure of how someone's, how they're speaking to you, with text messaging, right? And so that kind of, the body language, the tone, that's something that's always missing. So it's always, be careful with text messaging. Just be mindful of that. There is that miscommunication, and if you do feel like, whoa, like, that was, that's kind of, there's no, it was short on the text message, or, oh man, this person uses a lot of exclamation marks, or a lot of emojis, or, GIFs and stuff like that. And so, it crashes that your identity, whether or not you want to believe that, it is you, right? But, perception is reality. Like I was saying, assessment shapes our self-image. Especially in high school, that's when, for me, in early 2000s, texting was relatively new, and so when you're trying to text someone and you get left on red, it's you kind of feel hurt, right? Or you send something, you think it's you're hilarious, and you just get an LOL, right? Or if I was in a relationship and my partner was talking about their feelings, and you just respond with a lowercase k, right? It's it has the side effects for all that. But yeah, so we edit and reread texts before sending, right? Self-monitoring, just make sure that just how you do in person. Think before you speak, and then think before you text. It's curated versions of ourselves. Despite how we may feel like there's a lot of people who are maybe in text messaging, they're over exclamation marks, all this stuff, and then you see them in person and they're just as dry as ever. Or vice versa, someone could be dry in text messaging, and when you see them, they're vibrant. Self-worth through response times and reactions. Like I was saying, especially when you're younger, oh my god, like I left on red, it's it affects me. And so just understand people have lives, right? And so just because you send out text message or you're quick to respond, another person isn't, doesn't mean you're not important. So healthy communication approach, like I was talking about, be intentional. Just when you send a text message, just be thoughtful and make sure you think before you send your text. Don't let the rate or the red affect you that much. Even bosses or whatever, everyone has different things going on. So if someone's not timely responding to you, just be patient. Don't worry, the response times worry you. People have lives, like I was mentioning before. A lot of things are going on, and so text messaging, even though instantaneous, always be aware that other things are going on. And balance, information shared. Keep the good stuff. I always say keep the good stuff, in the person when you meet the person, right? Don't always overshare during text messages because, it's always there, right? And so you just want to keep things that are very personal, to yourself and to the face-to-face interactions. And so my personal statement is to log off. Sometimes put your phone down. Get to the text messages when you're in the right state of mind, when you're ready for them. You don't always have to be, even though it's instantaneous, you don't always have to be instantaneous, right? And so just, be mindful of that. And, texting is a tool of communication, not the way. There's a lot of different ways to communicate. Some people are more, feel more comfortable talking to you in person than to sit there on their phone all day and texting you, right? Just because that's the way you feel, the best way to communicate, right? Like, hey, text me. Other people don't feel that way. They don't want to be on their phone constantly. Connection is meant to be in person, and not necessarily shared through gifs and memes and all sorts of other stuff, right? And there's an element that's missing when you just constantly just rely on the phone. It can help a situation that need instant answers. Like my wife could be home from work. She'll say, hey, make sure you stop by the store and get some milk or something like that, right? Like, hey, like, where's the milk? What happened? Like, oh, I just saw your text, right? It's like, oh my God, So be mindful of that. Certain situations, or your boss, right? Hey, I sent you a text yesterday saying, can you show up 30 minutes early? How come you weren't here 30 minutes early? I sent the text at this time. So you just gotta, think about that stuff. And also the big stuff, leave the big stuff at home, right? If you have something to say with someone, wait till you see that person to really express how you really feel, especially important things. And a lot of miscommunication happens during texting. So just be mindful of that, despite how much you think you're communicating correctly. Just know that, each person is their own different universe, and each universe has their own rules. So just be mindful of that. And thank you.